the same people that where he's borrowing the money from are the same people that we've borrowed the money from. ADB, World Bank, Australia. Those are the same people we borrowed. The Chinese Exim Bank is borrowing money from the same people. The same rates, same terms, 25 to 30-year loan repayments. Most of them are concessional rates, 1 to 2%. Those are the borrowings that we've done. But we've borrowed money to build infrastructure. Every loan that we got, I can name it to a project, name it to a road, name it to an airport, name it to a wharf, name it to a hospital, name it to something that I've built, physically built in the country. Now, 37 billion kina that Marape government has borrowed, what have they built? They've just spent and consumed and stole.
All members of parliament must stand together and say no to the 2025 budget and absolutely stop the budget from being passed. We can run a supply bill up until February so that we just get all these in-house issues in order, because everything the Treasurer's been doing is illegal. He hasn't put the MAIFO out on time. He hasn't put a budget strategy paper, and we don't even know whether he's going to put a final budget outcome. So these are real serious issues, because you're talking about public money. It's the people's money. It's not his private business, but he continues to run the Treasury like a tucker box, and it has to stop.
The independence of the central bank is now highly compromised. Passing Australia now, you go level where country is our experience. All our institutions of government have gone silent.
Okay, in 2018, our public debt stock was at 25 billion kina. So the Marape government has borrowed 37 billion kina in 5 years, which is doubled, more than doubled, the total amount of debt that's been incurred since 1975. In 43 years since Somare, up until the Honorable Peter O'Neill, since the Grand Chief Somare, in 43 years, our national debt was at 25 billion. And since Marape became Prime Minister, he has not only doubled, he's increased his debt to 37 billion. And what has he got to show for it? What the government needs to do is immediately cut back on spending.
Revenue collections are at record levels. That means that we are receiving money, collecting money higher than what we have budgeted for. But we're still borrowing money. Why are we doing that?
So this basket of goods that they're using to calculate headline inflation, it's quite deceptive, because it doesn't accurately reflect what average Papua New Guineans are spending 100 kina on.
When Somare was in government, when I was in government, we've never dealt with that evil organization. The track record around the world is known for destroying economies around the world.
This Connect PNG program, for all listeners, it's a get-rich-quick money scheme concocted by the Marape government, which we consider to be a sinkhole, because there's no return on investment, and it doesn't create an environment where everybody participates in the predicted an inflation rate, headline inflation of 3.5%. But this doesn't reflect the cost of living crisis that the people of Papua New Guinea are currently experiencing. If you look at prices throughout the country, whether it's in the city, on the peri-urban parts of cities, in the rural districts, there's no regulation of prices. So ICCC isn't doing its job, and then they fall under the purview of the Treasury. You look at the National Statistics Office, NSO, they're not even doing their job. So this basket of goods that they're using to calculate headline inflation, it's quite deceptive, because it doesn't accurately reflect what average Papua New Guineans are spending 100 kina on. So there's a cost of living crisis. We've lost the purchasing power of the kina. It's eroded because of year-on-year inflation. And if you look at wages haven't increased with respect to inflation. So our minimum wage rate is still 3 kina 50. It's been 3 kina 50 for the last decade. It hasn't increased. So all this talk about inflation being under control and at 3.5%, it doesn't paint a realistic picture about what's happening in the country.
True.
When you look at this crawl peg depreciation strategy that was imposed by the IMF and praised by the Treasurer on the floor of Parliament, when we questioned him at the last Parliament session about the depreciation of the kina affecting business. Because we're still in an FX crisis, and we're still in an FX crisis. We're unable to the business are unable to get foreign exchange out to purchase goods from overseas. So if you go into the stores now, you look at the shelves, there's not replenished goods. We're dealing with fewer goods, there's fewer imports, and this affects excise duty, this affects import duty, this affects GST. So tax revenue is lost as a result of lack of imports, and you can't import without FX. And this FX crisis has been exacerbated because we haven't respected the independence of the central bank. The Treasury, the Treasury Department has imposed on the central bank. They've eroded the independence of the central bank. They've compromised their independence, and they've usurped the functions of the central bank by trying to meddle in the way the central bank regulates interest rates and regulates monetary policy. The job of the government and the Treasury is just to primarily focus on fiscal policy, government spending, and taxes. They can't go and impose on the central bank on what interest rates to apply to regulate monetary policy in the country, and that's what's happening. So there's a weakening of public institutions, and there's no more important institution in the country than the Bank of Papua New Guinea. So this is a real concern. If they don't change this, we're going to be in some real big trouble. And you can see that with the protracted FX issues that the country is currently experiencing. And it's affected business and business investment, and there's a total loss of confidence because of this meddling with the central bank.
I agree entirely with the Shadow Treasurer on his comments, and I know that the data that Treasury has released, the MAEFO, the outcome of the first 6 months of our budget cycle, is, as he said, 5 months late, and it's out of date already. Because you release it in November. By law, you are supposed to release it in July, August, by law. So we've missed all this time to adjust the budget going forward if we see that their budget is not performing well. That is why specifically this kind of legislation is framed. Now, the data that they are collecting, it's by National Statistical Office, and they can't even do the census properly. So how are they collecting data to say that inflation is tracking on the assumptions of about 3.5% per annum? Now, we know that depreciation of the kina is well above about 15%, well above 10% already because of the IMF restrictions. I've gone on record to say that IMF should be kicked out of this country. We don't need their money. When Somalia was in government, when I was in government, we've never dealt with that evil organization. The track record around the world is known for destroying economies around the world. Now, their strategy is saying that let's depreciate the kina, so kina value must go down. So because we are exporting more. What are we exporting? Our coffee production is down. Mm-hmm. Most of our agricultural production is down. Only thing that we are exporting is LNG. LNG now, because we're getting good revenue because the prices have gone up. But, prices will come down, and they're starting to come down. They went past $100. Now they are tracking at about $80. It'll come down to less than 50, and then we will be lower revenues coming through. So all these factors in consideration, and particularly when Papua New Guinea is an import-based country where you have a lot of things that we consume every day for our living is imported. So that means we need currency and our kina to import all this from foreign suppliers. Now, when you depreciate the kina, that value of the depreciation passes on straight forward to those imports. So they add on to the price already that is already going up already. So as Shadow Treasurer said, minimum wages have not gone up. Prices of goods are going up, and as a result, you see the cost of living crisis that our people are facing is real. Many of them are having probably one meal a day. They're not having 3 meals.